Hey, it's Esther Dillard with The Color Between the Lines, and we're going to be talking with an author by the name of Mychal Wynn, Mychalwynn. The reason why I spell it is because you might want to Google it. The guy has done countless books, but one of the series that I'm going to be talking to him about is why you should attend an HBCU, HBCU STEM pathways, HBCU healthcare pathways, as well as a huge book, HBCU scholarships. And I talked to him directly about what parents should know if they're looking to get their child in an HBCU. How can they pay for it or not have to pay for it because all the scholarships that are available. And he gives us the juice. So you may want to sit, take out a pencil and some paper and take some notes because this guy has a lot of information. If you like this kind of content, please subscribe to my channel. I'd like it if I could get some more subscribers this year for 2025, much more than I have in the past. So I'm looking for more people to click in. And also, if you like this kind of content, I'd love it if you just hit that like button because it makes me know whether or not you like these kind of interviews. Again, Esther Dillard, The Color Between the Lines. We're going to go right off to it right now. I'm Esther Dillard on the Black Information Network, chatting with writers and authors who offer an added perspective for our listeners. This is The Color Between the Lines. Joining me on this edition of The Color Between the Lines, we're speaking with Mychal Wynn. He is an educator that's been around for about 30 years and the author of around 27 books, including a series that we're going to talk about today. It's all about HBCUs, how you should research as far as finding one, scholarships, where you can apply, and help with financial assistance. Welcome, Mychal Wynn, to the BIN.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm ready for this conversation.
I am enjoying it because I looked at what had really attracted me to you was I read an article in Black Enterprise where they wrote, I'll read it. Wynn helps students understand how developing strategies for matching 2 to 3 scholarships. And then it went on to say that this is all to help all they need to increase on-time graduation and receive a debt-free college education. And I was thinking, any parent who reads that sentence or two is going to say, oh, I got to get these books. So I need to talk to this man about his books and how you help people get into HBCUs and especially get the financial help that they need. I have the 4 that arrived yesterday. And so I didn't get through all of them because it's quite a few. Please tell me, what are these book series about and who is it for?
Okay. I've been doing this work, as you mentioned, over 30 years, and we've been working with schools and school districts and hands-on with parents. All of my work is strategy focused and is driven by data. So when we begin to have the conversation about HBCUs, we need to begin with the data. The data is not good from a financial perspective, but there's a reason. So first, let me talk about the data and then why I wrote these books. 80% of students attending HBCUs are financing their education with student loans. The graduation rates for Black women is 44% over 6 years. The graduation rate for Black men is 34% over 6 years. Now, the question becomes, if you leave school without a degree and a mountain of debt, you still have to pay off that debt even without a degree.
Mm-hmm.
But the bigger question that any parent should raise is, well, wait a minute, why are so many students who are attending HBCUs doing so by financing their education on student loans? I thought that there were scholarships everywhere. Everywhere I look, there's a scholarship book that says scholarship money is falling out of the sky. All you got to do is hold your hands out and grab it. The problem is strategy. Many parents and students are not engaged in any college planning strategy whatsoever. They go through high school, they then apply to 50 or more schools, they get the acceptance letters, they post all of it on Facebook, they talk about all the scholarship money they were awarded. However, the devil's in the details. You can't spend scholarship money from one school with another school. So even if you awarded $1 million in scholarship money from 50 different schools, it only matters how much money you got from the school you're actually going to
You're
attend.
going to. Hmm.
And then your scholarship strategy has to fill that financial aid gap. However, what students do is every year, after they get accepted to college, they say, I need scholarships. No, you needed scholarships back in elementary school when you know you wanted to go to college. So then what should have happened from elementary school all the way through high school is positioning yourself strategically for the scholarships that you would most likely qualify for. Now, when it comes to HBCUs, it's some of them are transparent, and I'll give you an example. I worked with a student from Florida, and he would have gotten the Bright Futures in Florida. He was led to believe it paid for everything, but it doesn't. It only pays for tuition, and then you're on the hook for everything else. But
Hmm.
he had a 32 on the ACT, and he had over 4.0 GPA.
Mm.
And so I focused him on Tuskegee and Xavier because he could qualify for a full scholarship at both schools. He and his parents had a road trip to New Orleans to visit Xavier and to Alabama to visit Tuskegee. And he had one more thing. He was a baseball player, but he was not a recruited athlete. So he wanted to attend college to become a mechanical engineer and play baseball because he loved baseball. He's at Tuskegee on a full scholarship, a walk on to the baseball team, number 22, Ryan Morrow, and he is doing fine. But that was a strategy. The other thing is that oftentimes students, when they're, I mean, right now, HBCUs are receiving a record number of applications, but students oftentimes are applying to the brand names. Everybody knows A&T,
Right,
Morehouse, Spelman.
right.
So they're not applying to college based upon financial need. They're applying to college based upon brand names. So I got another story for you. Worked with another student from Florida. He had an opportunity for a full scholarship at Claflin University, but he turned it down because he wanted the brand, North Carolina A&T,
Oh,
where
wow.
he went without any scholarship money.
Mm,
At the end of a year, his GPA had fallen to 1.9. He
mm,
had already taken out almost $30,000 in student loans, and he was despondent and depressed. We had lost track of him, and my wife she checks in with our students regularly. So she just, on this particular day, it sounded like he was standing on a bridge ready to jump when he answered my wife's call. And she said, What's going on? Well, Mrs. Wynn, I should have gone to Claflin. I left A&T. It didn't work out for me. I don't know
mm,
what I'm going to do. She said, Don't worry, let me make some calls. So now he's on his way to Claflin. They are going to accept him, give him a chance to get a fresh start, and he will still have an opportunity to earn his way into the honors college. So those are just two very different stories, but the common thread is matching to the right school because that's where the majority of scholarship money will come from, and then supplementing that with 2 to 3 additional scholarships if you have any gap.
mm, 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 mm.
Now that's only the. I'm sorry, you were about to ask me a question. I love what I do, so
Yeah, I know. It
I was.
sounded, I think that you have, honestly, I think most parents, when they probably listen to you and listen to this conversation, wish they had you as on backup dial. You could just call you up and say, "Hey, help me out here." Because having that guide in many ways is something that I don't think a lot of parents have. Do you find that parents feel like when they do connect with you that where were you?
Absolutely, absolutely. We started our foundation back in 2006, and
Mm,
it grew out of my wife and I serving as education ministry leaders at our church, where we had a lot of national publicity on the number of scholarships that students at our church were receiving. And so we started our foundation to really spread that information to schools and school districts. We wound up with some contracts with school districts and we were working hands-on with students, and that was great. The problem is there are so many school districts that don't provide any of this information. I mean, they don't even put my books on the bookshelf. That's the easiest thing to do. If you're not going to bring in a consultant, at least put the books on the bookshelf so that students can at least begin reading and learning about what. So this year we have started attending HBCU college fairs so that we could connect directly with parents and students. The problem for many students is that they're only attending a college fair as a high school senior.
Right.
Really, your college planning it should in earnest begin by sixth grade. At the
Mm,
latest, it should begin by ninth grade because you
mm,
have that 7 year gap to really develop the elements of your profile that align with your gifts and your talents. So not every student is going to have a 4.0 GPA or a 30 plus on the ACT. We know that. However, there are students who are gifted in music and art and poetry and spoken word. There are students who are gifted in leadership. They're always involved in the community and always helping. So what we want parents and students to begin to think about is what's their brand? And if they can understand their brand, whatever that brand is, then start to focus your college and scholarship research consistent with your brand. So if you're a scholar athlete, that's one brand. If you're a student who bakes cakes and does community service, that's another brand. And so if a student aligns their brand, one, with their college and scholarship focus, but also two, their career. Nearly 40% of students are going to change majors in college
yep.
because they don't engage in an interest survey before they choose a career. They say things like, when I was in third grade, there was a doctor that came in and I just decided I'm going to become a doctor. Or I have an
Mm.
aunt who's a nurse and I just decided I'm going to become a nurse. Whereas their interest profile may be totally different. They may be focused on something in a whole nother field. So those are all the conversations that if I was working with a family in person, I would have, but then I have put all of that information in everything that I've written so that a family won't be able to say, I didn't have a consultant, so I didn't know what to do. No, it's in the book. You can read the book. Now, if you don't want to read the book, then you hire a consultant.
Well, I imagine what prompted you to create this series and just create the foundation was because of your background growing up. I read in a bio that you were adopted as a child and your parents were not college grads. Can you tell us a little bit about your personal story and what?
Yeah, my parents are from Memphis, Tennessee. At least both of them have passed now, but they were from Memphis, Tennessee. My dad dropped out of school at the end of the eighth grade, hopped a freight train at some point to go to Chicago, where he started working, where he enlisted in the Navy and then began working for the U.S. Postal Service when he got out of the Navy. My mom dropped out of school in the 10th grade, and she went to Chicago and she became a seamstress. I was given up for adoption when I was 6 months old. So my parents had, and what's common in the Black community particularly, is that oftentimes adoptions are just sort of underground railroad type adoptions. You know someone who knows someone who has a baby, and so my mom knew my biological mother, and they were friends, and so she couldn't care. No, she knew my biological aunt.
Mm,
That's how the story went. My biological mother from Pike County, Alabama, but my biological aunt was from Sharon, Pennsylvania. So they managed to get me from Pike County, Alabama to Sharon, Pennsylvania, where my mom drove from Chicago, Illinois to collect me when I was 6 months old. And then I grew up in Chicago,
mm,
on the South Side in a high crime, high poverty area, and I attended Chicago public schools. Since neither of my parents had a college education, they knew nothing about any sort of college planning. They just said, go to school and figure it out. And so my high school was one of the lowest performing high schools in America. We had 500 ninth graders and only 50 graduated 12th grade. Of those 50, about 15 went on to some type of college. So I was one of those 15. I had never heard of an HBCU. It wasn't mentioned. I just got a brochure for the Illinois Institute of Technology, and that was it. But fortunately, I attended a college fair where the only Black guy in the room was a representative from Northeastern University in Boston. He called me over to his table, told me about the cooperative education program at Northeastern, that I could work my way through college. I was sold. I went back to school. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell my counselor. I didn't tell anyone. I just applied to college totally without any guidance or advice. And then I got a conditional acceptance from Northeastern. They said, we will accept you if you take and pass a class in physics and a class in calculus, neither of which were offered at my high school.
Oh,
For
wow.
me, that was my ticket. I knew there was no turning back at that point. So I enrolled in community college for one semester. I got an A in physics, a B in calculus. I worked at night from 10:30 p.m. to 2:30 a.m. at the U.S. Post Office. Then in January, I was on an airplane for the first time in my life. I was in college.
Wow. Wow, what a story. And I'm sure that this was inspirational to your family and those who knew you, where who you grew up with, after doing that, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Well, for my family, I'm the first in my family to ever have attended college. None of my cousins, most of my cousins didn't graduate from high school. But the one thing, and that Malcolm Gladwell, he talks about tipping points in one of his
Yeah.
books. And so, what we see in our work is that a first generation student can become a tipping point. And so once I went to college, all of my cousins, when they started having children, they told their children, if your dumb cousin Michael could go to college, you're smart enough to go to college.
Oh
And
boy.
so the next generation, by and large, they all have gone on to college. I was the example for them that it was possible. As a matter of fact, one of my cousins has a grandson who just got accepted to Yale.
Wow. Awesome. For those who are just joining us, I'm Esther Dillard, and I'm speaking with Mychal Wynn, the author of an HBCU book series that you got to get a hold of, especially if you're a parent that is thinking about sending your child to college. It directs people, giving them a direct layout of how to research where to go as far as scholarships and having kind of a plan in order to get your kid into college. I want you to please talk to me, and to parents who may be in a situation where their child is in high school. They're trying to figure this thing out now. They're a little late. What is your best advice for them to and where to start?
Okay, let's begin. We always need to begin with the child. What are the child's interests, gifts, talents, personality, temperament? What type of environment would be the best environment for that child to thrive? And then what's the financial need? For so many parents, they will say he needs a full scholarship.
Yeah.
Well, that comes a number of ways. One, if a child has we like to call it the body of work, meaning their grades and test scores and achievements throughout high school, they have the body of work that matches directly to a college for a full scholarship, then that's where the focus needs to be. It needs to be on that group of schools, needs to be applying by the deadline to be considered for the full scholarship money. If a child doesn't have the body of work for a direct full scholarship from the school, then we need to look at the college major and what schools that child would have the opportunity to get scholarship money even after enrolling based upon what they were studying. And so I'll give you this example. We have a student at Spelman College who was not offered any scholarship money from Spelman going in. However, she's majoring in computer science. There is a scholarship program called the Code House Scholars. That program is a $20,000 annual scholarship, but it's only for 5 HBCUs, and Spelman is one of the 5. So she actually got that scholarship before she even started first day of class at Spelman. So because the scholarship is awarded the summer before you start school. So she got 20,000 going in the door. Didn't come from Spelman. Then after she got admitted to Spelman, there's another scholarship program that she applied for called the ELC Scholars Program. That was another $10,000 scholarship. So now she's already got 30 to help cover the costs of attending Spelman and being admitted to Spelman. Spelman is really good on connecting admitted students to scholarship opportunities, and there just are a ton of them. But the key thing is the attitude that the student had. When we were working with her, we said, look, you have to strengthen your resume in this area. And she did what we said do. Then we said, once you get into college, you have to transition your resume to a curriculum vitae and you have to get involved in organizations at Spelman. So when you apply for the next round of scholarships, they see your contribution. All of that is just strategy. And
Mhm.
so that's the example for Spelman, but it really can work at any HBCU, but it does require research. And then the final point that I'll make, we have a number of students who attend Claflin University in South Carolina, a small private HBCU that's not widely known. However, the students that we have sent there, they've come from all over the country, and all of them are attending school on full scholarship because they were able to qualify for the honors college at Claflin. But that type of strategy, it has to start as soon as the conversation about college begins.
Finally, I have to ask for our parents who have kids on the spectrum. There are quite a few that I connect with on Facebook, and many of them are kind of frustrated about HBCUs. They feel like the programs often do not include them, you know. So, wondered what your advice is for those parents who really would like to kind of get their kids in that environment, but they just need kind of more of a support system, if you know what I mean.
After I thought about your question, I reached out to some HBCUs. I haven't heard back from them yet. However, the research steps are going to be exactly the same. So when I researched colleges that are considered top schools in addressing the unique needs of students, no HBCUs were on that list. However, that list was only 30 to 40 schools. And since there are 2,700 colleges and only 100 HBCUs, HBCUs are not the only ones who are not on the list.
Mhm.
So most schools, I would say the vast majority of schools, they meet the federal requirements, which is minimum support. But there are some schools that are at the very top in terms of the support that they offer students. And unfortunately, I don't find any HBCUs on that list.
Mm. Final thoughts before we wrap up, and where should people go if they want to find more information about you and the HBCU books that you have about you?
Okay, they can go to Amazon.com, but I suggest don't go to Amazon. Come directly to the source. Our website is accessandequity.org, accessandequity.org.
I appreciate you. Thank you, Mychal Wynn, for joining us on the BIN.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, that's it for this edition of The Color Between the Lines. I'm Esther Dillard for the Black Information Network. Well, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Mychal Wynn. I know I sure did. Is very knowledgeable and has a lot of great tips. Three things that I did take away from this interview was number one, make sure that you start early as possible when it comes to trying to prepare ahead of time for your child to go to an HBCU. He says as early as elementary school. I would say that is true, depending on your child. Number two, know your child's skills. Each kid is different, and your kid may have more skills in one area than another, which means that you should capitalize on those things throughout their school education. If they are one that is really great in math, maybe you put them in a special program that helps them with more of those math skills being highlighted. If they're a sports kid, then of course athletics is something that you might push them toward and make sure that not only their grades are up, but that they do well in the sport as well and are involved in different things. Number three, don't always gravitate toward the shiny HBCU that everybody else talks about and that has the most press. There's a lot of HBCUs out there, and some HBCUs may be better for one kid than another. And you may find scholarships and such and support more support at one HBCU than another. So those are the three things that I really took away from him. And we talked offline as well about how there are other colleges that help kids on the spectrum because it's much different than what many HBCUs don't offer those kind of programs. But I think that they might in the future. Who knows? I'm really looking forward to having more conversations with him about that. Hope you enjoyed it again. Esther Dillard with The Color Between the Lines. And please, again, subscribe and smash that like button if you like the content.